The Passion of the Christ shocked the world not only because of what it showed on screen, but because of what it did to the people who made it. This was not a normal film. It demanded more than acting. It demanded endurance, conviction, and in some cases, personal transformation. What happens when an actor does not just portray faith, but is forced to confront it? What price is paid when a role follows you long after the cameras stop rolling? And why did so many people involved later say this project changed them forever? Today's story is not about theology or doctrine. It is about real people, actors, directors, and artists who stepped into one of the most controversial films ever made and walked out carrying scars. Questions, faith, and consequences they never expected. This is what happened after the cross. Jim Caviezel. When Jim Caviezel accepted the role of Jesus in The Passion of the Christ, he knew it would be demanding. What he did not understand, what no one fully could, was that this role would stop being a performance and begin reshaping his entire life. Caviezel was 33 years old at the time. The coincidence was unsettling even before filming began. From the earliest days on set, the production made it clear that comfort was not a priority. The languages were ancient. The locations were harsh. The physical demands were relentless. This was not symbolic suffering. Much of it was real. During filming, Caviezel endured hypothermia while hanging nearly naked in freezing conditions. He dislocated his shoulder carrying the cross. A whipping scene went wrong, and he was struck harder than intended. Then came the incident that stunned even hardened crew members. Caviezel was struck by lightning while on the cross. He survived, but the message lingered. This film was pushing boundaries no actor expects to cross. The toll did not end when filming wrapped. Caviezel later revealed that he developed serious heart complications and required multiple surgeries. His body carried the cost long after the audience left theaters. But the physical suffering, as severe as it was, turned out to be only one part of the price. Hollywood noticed the film's success. What it did not embrace was Caviezel's openness about faith, according to the actor. Mel Gibson warned him early on, playing Jesus openly and sincerely would close doors. Caviezel later said that warning proved accurate. High-profile roles slowed. Invitations stopped coming. The industry moved on without him. Yet this is where the story takes the turn many did not expect. Caviezel did not retreat. He did not soften his stance. Instead, he leaned into it. He began choosing projects aligned with his beliefs, even when they carried controversy or risk. Films like Paul, Apostle of Christ and Sound of Freedom positioned him not as a mainstream leading man, but as a figure willing to stand apart. In interviews, Caviezel has been clear. He does not regret the decision. He does not speak of the role as a career highlight, but as a calling. He has said he did not simply play Jesus. He submitted himself to the experience, fully aware that it might cost him professionally. Today, Caviezel remains a polarizing figure. Some see conviction, others see defiance. But no one can argue this. His life divided into two distinct chapters, before the cross and after it, and he is not finished. Caviezel has confirmed his return as Jesus in the resurrection of the Christ. When asked if he fears reliving the experience, his answer was honest, yes, because, as he put it, that film was never just acting, it was real. Monica Bellucci and Maia Morgenstern. While the brutality of the Passion of the Christ is often discussed through the suffering of Jesus, the emotional center of the story rests just as strongly with the women who remained when almost everyone else fled. Two performances in particular carried that weight. Monica Bellucci as Mary Magdalene and Maia Morgenstern as the Virgin Mary. Both women came from very different backgrounds. Both approached the film without public religious agendas. And yet, both later described the experience as something that reached beyond cinema. For Bellucci, the casting itself surprised many. She was internationally known for glamorous and sensual roles in European cinema. To some observers, her image seemed incompatible with the humility and brokenness of Mary Magdalene. Bellucci did not resist that contrast. She leaned into it. She has said the script affected her immediately, not intellectually, but emotionally. This was not a role about words or explanations. It was about presence. Mary Magdalene in the film speaks very little. Her grief, fear, loyalty, and love are expressed almost entirely through her eyes and posture. Bellucci trained in Aramaic and Latin, but what ultimately carried the performance was restraint. On set, she witnessed scenes that unsettled her deeply. The violence, the silence between takes, the emotional heaviness. It did not disappear when the camera stopped. Bellucci later admitted that she often cried away from the set, affected by what she had just seen. She was not performing belief. She was reacting to suffering. The response from the media was mixed. Some critics could not reconcile her past image with this role. Bellucci refused to defend herself aggressively. Instead, she framed Mary Magdalene as a woman transformed by compassion, not by reputation. She later said that while she did not consider herself religious, the film brought her closer to what she described as the sacred. Maia Morgenstern's experience followed a different path, a respected stage and film actress in Eastern Europe. Morgenstern was not widely known internationally before the film. She is Jewish by birth, a fact that sparked criticism from some corners after the film's release. She never responded defensively. Her focus remained on one simple truth: Mary is, above all else, a mother. Morgenstern studied Mary not as an icon, but as a woman facing the unbearable, watching her son suffer and being unable to stop it. Her performance is defined by silence. She does not shout. She does not collapse theatrically. She endures. One scene in particular became unforgettable. Mary running toward Jesus as he falls under the weight of the cross. There is no speech, no dramatic gesture, just recognition, terror, and love. Crew members later said that moment felt less like acting and more like witnessing something private. Morgenstern herself later explained that she did not pretend grief. She accessed it through empathy. Any mother, she said, understands the fear of seeing a child in pain. Religion was not required to reach that truth. Despite criticism, her portrayal became one of the most praised elements of the film. Viewers across cultures recognized something universal in her restraint. Years later, her image as Mary remains fixed in the memory of audiences. Both actresses continued their careers after the film. Neither turned the role into public preaching. And yet, both acknowledged that the passion changed them, not by answers, but by exposure. Exposure to suffering, loyalty, and a kind of love that does not need explanation. They did not speak much in the film, but what they carried stayed with millions. John and Peter, not every disciple in the Passion of the Christ is defined by action. Some are defined by staying, others by falling. Two performances captured this tension with quiet force: Christo Jivkov as John and Francesco De Vito as Peter. John is not the loudest presence in the story. He does not shout, argue, or make promises. What defines him is something simpler and rarer. He does not leave. Jivkov played John as a man who absorbs pain without protest. His role required restraint, not heroics. He stands beside Mary. He watches. He endures. In a story filled with violence and chaos, John represents steadiness. The camera often lingers on his face not because he reacts strongly, but because he refuses to look away, off-screen. Jivkov was known for the same quiet temperament. He avoided attention, gave few interviews, and treated the role not as a career milestone, but as a responsibility. In one rare comment, he said John was the youngest of the disciples, but the one who remained when courage failed others. That idea shaped his performance. After the film's release, Jivkov continued working mainly in European cinema, choosing smaller roles and avoiding Hollywood exposure. He never tried to capitalize publicly on the film's success. For him, the passion remained something personal. In 2023, Jivkov passed away at just 48 years old after battling cancer. His death brought renewed attention to his performance. Many viewers returned to the film and noticed something they had missed before. John's silence carries as much emotional weight as any scream in the story. He represents the kind of faith that does not speak loudly, but does not leave. Peter's story moves in the opposite direction. Francesco De Vito's Peter is passionate, impulsive, sincere, and fragile from the beginning. Peter is the one who speaks boldly, who swears loyalty, who believes his courage will hold, and then it doesn't. The denial scene is one of the most uncomfortable moments in the film. There is no dramatic music to soften it. Peter denies Jesus 3 times, and the realization hits immediately. DeVito's face collapses under the weight of what he has done. When Peter runs and falls, crying alone, the camera does not rush past the moment. It stays. DeVito later explained that he wanted Peter to feel recognizable. Not heroic, not villainous, human. A man who loves deeply but breaks under pressure. That choice resonated strongly with audiences, especially those who saw their own weakness reflected on screen. Preparing for the role, DeVito studied the Gospels and worked closely with advisors to understand Peter's contradictions. His performance was praised not for intensity, but for honesty. Peter is not shown as a man beyond redemption, but as someone who reaches it through regret. After the film, DeVito continued acting primarily in Italy, often in historical or religious productions. He did not pursue international fame, like several others in the cast. The passion marked him, but did not turn him into something he was not. Together, John and Peter form a quiet contrast. One stays when others flee. One flees, then returns broken. Neither is portrayed as perfect, and that may be why both performances endure. They do not offer idealized faith. They offer recognizable faith, tested, shaken, and exposed. In the next section, the story turns darker. We will look at the figures who opposed Jesus directly and one who betrayed him from within, Judas, Pilate. Every story of faith also contains its opposites. In the Passion of the Christ, the figures who stand against Jesus are not written as caricatures. They are portrayed as people making choices under pressure, choices that reveal fear, ambition, confusion, and collapse. Nowhere is this clearer than in the performances of Judas, Pilate, and the authorities surrounding them. Judas, the man who could not escape himself. Luca Lionello accepted one of the most difficult roles in biblical storytelling, Judas Iscariot. Rather than presenting him as pure evil, the film depicts Judas as internally shattered. He is restless, haunted, and increasingly unstable. Lionello's Judas is not confident in betrayal. He hesitates. He regrets. He spirals. The moment he tries to return the silver coins is filmed not as redemption, but as desperation. He wants relief, not forgiveness, and when he cannot find it, he collapses. What makes this role extraordinary is what happened off-screen. Lionello later revealed that he began the project as an atheist, immersing himself in the story, especially while portraying the man who betrayed Jesus, forced him to confront questions he had long avoided. By the end of filming, he converted into Christianity. He later said, "By playing Judas, I found Christ." For many viewers, that statement became one of the most striking legacies of the entire production. Pilate, the man who knew better and still gave in, if Judas represents internal collapse. Christos Shapov's Pontius Pilate represents something more familiar, moral weakness under pressure. Pilate is shown as intelligent, observant, and unconvinced of Jesus' guilt. He says so openly. Yet he is trapped by politics, by fear of rebellion, by loyalty to Rome. Shapov plays Pilate as a man exhausted by compromise. Every decision weighs on him. Every glance reveals hesitation. His most famous act, washing his hands, is not portrayed as arrogance, but as surrender. He does not hate Jesus. He fears consequences more than injustice. That distinction is what makes the performance uncomfortable. Pilate is not monstrous. He is cowardly. Shapov later said the role forced him to reflect on his own decisions in life. How often, he asked, do people choose safety over truth? Pilate's failure is quiet, but devastating. Religious authority is embodied through Matthias Bragia as Caiaphas. His performance avoids melodrama. Caiaphas is calm, strategic, and convinced that eliminating Jesus is necessary to preserve order. Spragia portrayed him not as a man driven by rage, but by fear of losing control. Herod Antipas, played by Luca de Dominicis, represents indifference and vanity. His brief appearance is telling. He mocks, he avoids responsibility. He sends Jesus away because truth does not interest him. Then there is Claudia Procula, Pilate's wife, portrayed by Claudia Gerini. Her role is small, but her warning carries weight. She senses danger. She urges Pilate to stop. She is ignored. Gerini later said the role made her reflect on how often warnings are dismissed because they are inconvenient. Finally, looming over everything is Satan, played by Rosalinda Celentano. Her portrayal is unsettling not because of spectacle, but because of stillness. Satan watches, observes, waits. There is no chaos, only presence. Celentano described the role as psychologically demanding, but also deeply reflective, forcing her to confront the nature of choice and consequence. Together, these characters form a pattern: betrayal driven by despair, authority compromised by fear, power preserved through injustice, warnings ignored, truth observed, but not defended. None of these figures shout evil slogans. They simply choose wrongly. And that may be the most unsettling part of all. Mel Gibson. Behind every frame of The Passion of the Christ stood a director who understood exactly how far this story would push people and chose to go there anyway. Mel Gibson did not approach the film as a career move. He approached it as a personal reckoning. From the beginning, Gibson made decisions that set the project apart. He insisted on ancient languages, Aramaic, Latin, and Hebrew, knowing this would limit commercial appeal. He refused to soften the violence, not to shock, but to remove distance. His goal was not comfort, it was confrontation. Gibson later explained that he wanted viewers to understand the cost of the crucifixion, not as an abstract idea, but as a physical and moral reality. That decision sparked controversy immediately. Critics accused the film of excess, others said it went too far. Gibson did not deny the intensity, he defended the purpose. But the most revealing choice he made never involved a camera angle or a line of dialogue. In the crucifixion scene, the hands that drive the nails into Jesus' flesh are Gibson's own. He did not delegate that moment. He chose to appear symbolically, not as a bystander, but as a participant. When asked why, he answered simply, he wanted to make it clear that responsibility did not belong to history alone. He said, in essence, I did this too. That moment reframed the entire film. It was no longer just a retelling of an ancient execution. It became a personal confession, one that placed guilt, complicity, and accountability directly in the present. The production took a toll on Gibson as well. The film reignited public scrutiny of his faith, his past, and his personal struggles. He faced backlash from parts of Hollywood and the media. Even as the film became a global phenomenon, The Passion of the Christ was not just successful, it became one of the highest-grossing independent films of all time. Yet Gibson never spoke of it as a victory. In later interviews, he described the project as something he felt compelled to do, regardless of consequences. He did not present himself as righteous or detached. If anything, he emphasized his own flaws, stating that the story resonated with him precisely because he did not see himself as innocent. Over time, the film's influence became clear. It reshaped how faith-based stories could be told in mainstream cinema. It proved that audiences were willing to engage with difficult material when it was presented honestly. And it left a lasting imprint on everyone involved, from lead actors to supporting casters to crew members who said the atmosphere on set was unlike anything they had experienced before. Now, decades later, Gibson is preparing the resurrection of the Christ. The project has been described as even more challenging, both technically and emotionally. Many from the original cast are expected to return, not out of nostalgia, but continuity. Because for Gibson, this story was never finished. The cross was only the beginning. More than 20 years after its release, The Passion of the Christ is still discussed, still debated, and still remembered, not only for what it showed, but for what it did. This was not a production where actors walked away unchanged. Some left with physical scars, others with careers altered. Some discovered faith they did not have before. Others found their beliefs tested, refined, or shaken. A few paid a price in silence, choosing smaller paths instead of wider recognition. And one actor gave his own hands to the moment that defined the story, refusing to stand apart from its meaning. What connects all of them is not religion, fame, or controversy. It is confrontation. Each person involved was forced to face suffering, responsibility, loyalty, fear, or truth in a way that could not be neatly contained within a script. That may be why this film continues to resonate. It does not allow distance. It does not let viewers hide behind history or symbolism. It asks a quiet but uncomfortable question. Where would you stand if you were there? As the sequel approaches and these faces return, older. Marked by time, the story feels less like a memory and more like an unfinished conversation. So here is the question worth leaving open. Did the Passion of the Christ simply portray faith, or did it expose something we still struggle to face? I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments.